And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another fantastic installment from very high above all the puerile and insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Friday. It's Open Line Friday. That's right, my friends. Today is Open Line Friday. This is the day where we talk about whatever you want to talk about. You see, normally during the week, this is a Dave-tocracy, and you kind of have to talk about what I want to talk about. Not so on Friday. On Friday, you can call in, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. So the number to do that is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989 is the number to reach me right here in the studio. So if there's something you've been chewing on all week and it's just really getting the better of you, well, then go ahead and give me a call. And we'll talk about it, whatever you want to do. Now, I do have a big program set up for you today. Today is the day where we're going to announce something that I've been working on for months. Probably since late June, I've been working on this project, and I should say we have been working on this project. My good friend Rebecca Bextel, and now my business partner and I have been putting together a special project for you, and we're going to tell you all about it at the top of the second hour. So at 9 o'clock, we'll tell you everything that's been going on in this one. And it's a lot, my friends, I have to tell you. But I'm super excited. It's a really big day for me. Anytime you get to reveal a big project and it works great and everything is fantastic, that's a pretty good day. So anyway, we'll do that at 9 o'clock. The rest of the program, pretty much the news of the day. And holy crap, is it a lot, I got to tell you, my friends. Zoran Mamdani getting sworn in as mayor of New York. I think you should take that guy at his word. Anytime somebody says, hey, I'm a communist, and these are the things that I believe, and, maybe, just maybe, I'm going to do away with all this capitalism stuff. Maybe, perhaps, you should take him at his word. And I think you should, because he had some great, what he considers great one-liners yesterday. And this is the problem with conservatives and with Republicans and, generally with Americans, is that we don't take people at their word. Now, think about it. Let me put it another way. If somebody says, hey, I'm going to kill you, you should probably take them seriously. There's no reason whatsoever why you shouldn't consider that a threat and say, yeah, well, the guy probably means it, and then take precautions to prevent that from happening. Well, politics works no different. When somebody tells you I'm a radical communist, maybe you should believe them. Maybe you shouldn't vote for them. And maybe we shouldn't rest on this dumb idea that politicians just say stuff to get elected. And then it's true. Most of them do. But when you have a guy like Zoran Mamdani, a radical communist, who straight up comes out and says stuff like this.
But then there are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it's the end goal of ceasing the means of production, where we do not have the same level of support at this very moment. And what I want to say is that it is critical that in the way that we organize, in the way that we set up our work and our priorities, that we do not leave any one issue for the other, that we do not.
Yeah, so we have to be open about our socialism, and we have to seize the means of production. Now, that's what he said during the campaign. Now, you shouldn't even question whether or not he actually means that, because he absolutely does. And he said it again yesterday. Let me just give you like one of his top 10 from yesterday, and there's a whole bunch of them, but listen to this. This should sound pretty familiar because he's been saying this throughout his campaign.
We will answer to all New Yorkers, not to any billionaire or oligarch who thinks they can buy our democracy. We will govern without shame and insecurity, making no apology for what we believe. I was elected as a democratic socialist, and I will govern as a democratic socialist.
The thunderous applause. Listen to it. Yay, 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 yay. Thunderous applause.
This is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause.
Yeah, well, all the people that voted for him, he's promising all sorts of crazy stuff. And why shouldn't they believe him? And that's what I'm saying, my friends. When you have radical people that decide that they're going to get sworn into office by Bernie Sanders, the admitted socialist, and Mamdani gets on stage and he says, "I'd like to welcome the great senator from the state of Vermont, my idol, what I pattern all of my policies after, or who I pattern all of my policies after, Bernie Sanders." There shouldn't be any doubt left in your mind as about who this guy actually is. Well, here's a piece from Breitbart. Mamdani vows to govern as a democratic socialist in his inauguration speech. Now, remember, I showed you yesterday that he actually got sworn in the New York tunnel with the slime dripping off the sides of the tunnel, which, by the way, should be, we should hold on to that picture because that's what New York's going to look like after Zoran Mamdani is done with it. But here's what Breitbart says, and I quote, New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani pledged to govern the Big Apple as a democratic socialist. Now, let's talk about that word for just a second. There's no such thing as a democratic socialist. The left just puts that word in front of socialism so that it makes it sound better. But the two are actually contradictory. Here we go. We're back. Okay, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on with my internet connection. But anyway, I don't know where you left off. But let's talk about that term, democratic socialism. So why do we have a republic? Because our founders knew that democracy really is two wolves and a sheep voting on what they're going to have for lunch. That rule by a majority is in itself tyranny. That you have no respect for what the minority wants, and so you just vote for it, which is why we don't have a pure democracy. Thomas Jefferson said that history tells us nothing but what is bad government. I horribly butchered that quotation, but essentially that's his point, that when you look at the history of government, it should educate you on what bad government is. And our founders, being very learned people and being very well-read, knew that any sort of democracy is going to end in tyranny. It did in ancient Greece. It did in Rome. For however long Rome did have the Senate, which wasn't really very long. But it always ends in a dictator. And so we definitely didn't want to set that up. So why is it then that the left thinks that they throw this word democracy on it? It makes it sound better. Well, most people don't understand that we don't live in a democracy, that we live in a republic, which is a representative constitutional republic, which means you have a constitution, the people elect their representatives, and then their representatives govern according to that constitution, or at least that's the theory. But we've heard chants from the left for a really long time. Save our democracy. We have to, they're attacking our democracy. Trump is a threat to our democracy. What do they really mean? Well, it's not that, like, the main people on the left, so Zoran Mamdani, Bernie Sanders, those people, they already know that we don't have a democracy. Only a moron or a highly uneducated person would think that we have a democracy. So what is it they're trying to do? Well, when they say that you or the president or whomever else is a threat to our democracy, they don't mean that we have one. It means the democracy they are trying to create, and that is rule by majority. That, like I said, it's two wolves and a sheep deciding on what they're going to have for lunch. But it makes it sound better because most people do believe that we live in a democracy. Now, are there democratic ideas? Sure. We hear countries, officials from other countries in Europe or whatever, refer to democracy. But the only direct democracy, which is, everybody votes on everything, and then majority rules, there are very, very few of those. And even if there was one that we could think of, it would end in straight up dictatorship. A guy that calls into the program a lot, friend of the program, Jerry Jackson, he always quotes or comments at least once per episode, "God bless our republic." You're right about that, Jerry. God bless our republic, and thank God, thank God that communism is wholly incompatible with our constitutional republic. But let's get back to the piece. Here is what what Breitbart has to say. Mamdani vowed to hold to the radical views he pushed during his campaign against former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Republican Curtis Sliwa. Quote, "We will transform the culture of City Hall from one of no to one of how." I don't know what that means, which is, okay, so a lot of the stuff in his speech doesn't really mean anything. No, I mean, it doesn't really, they're just slogans. And if you'll notice, if you listen to the entirety of his speech, which I didn't, I kind of fast forwarded through parts of it, you'll notice that it's all rhetoric. It's all sophistry. Because really, when you boil it all down, his idea of socialism is going to be really, really bad. And if people actually knew what he had planned, they wouldn't have voted for him in the first place. Let's see here. Mamdani said that he will not waver on his principles for fear of them being deemed too radical. At another point in his remarks, he promised the revival of big government. Wow. Let's see if I've got that one. No, I didn't. But here's what he said during the campaign. And this was in his victory speech, but it was very similar to what he said back then.
This new age will be defined by a competence and a compassion that have too long been placed at odds with one another. We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
Wow, right? Holy crap. I mean, how could anybody vote for that? Well, I mean, the truth is that he did get a lot of young people to vote for him. And when we looked at the election returns, this has been, well, back in November, right after the election, I went through this for you. The people that got Mamdani elected were women and were young people under the age of 25. And I don't have any explanation for the female vote in that race, but I mean, overwhelmingly, women voted for Mamdani, and men voted for Andrew Cuomo or Curtis Sliwa. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was also on hand and declared in her remarks that New York City is entering a new era under far-left Mamdani. Quote, "This ascent marks a new era for New York City, led by a historic new mayor in Zoran Mamdani, guided by his dedication to a working class that makes our beautiful city run," she said, per The Hill. Well, it's not going to run, at least in the long term. And fortunately, there are going to be some people that are going to push back at him. And you know this is the beautiful thing about our system of government, that we have checks and balances, and even in far left New York, they have checks and balances too. There's a city council, there's a state legislature, and even though there's a radical socialist in as governor, he's got to get everything he wants through the governor. So if he makes it through all of those things, well, then he can enact a lot of his more radical policies. But here is what one New York City Councilwoman had to say about Mamdani. And I'm telling you, my friends, this is, when I think of New York and I think of, a shrewd politician from New York, this is the voice that I hear in my head.
What I heard yesterday was a young man, an experienced young man, being taken over. The DSA has raised this kid, and rugged individualism. Give me a break. That's what built this country. Okay, he's wet behind the ears. He's got a lot to learn, but he declared war on anybody who thinks differently than he does yesterday. It was a very well-defined, articulated message to anybody who gets in his way. He is going to do anything and everything within his power to keep us quiet. Well, you're not keeping me quiet. And we're going to have a little problem with that going forward because I am who I am, and I will continue to speak out on behalf of the other citizens of New York City who have been existing here for decades and decades all of our lives.
Okay, so like she said, she's going to have a problem with this Mamdani character. But am I not right? When you think of shrewd New York politician, is that not the voice you hear? I mean, is that not what you hear in the back of your head? Definitely. But she's right. There are many people on the city council in New York that are not entirely as left-wing as Zoran Mamdani, like her. And by the way, that's the coffee pot that you hear in the background. One of the many reasons that I absolutely enjoy this studio. But after his inauguration, Zoran held a block party, or what he called a block party, but in true communist fashion. And I hope the citizens of New York get used to this idea, because this is going to happen a lot. When you start providing stuff like free buses and government food stores and all of the things that Zoran Mamdani promised, this is what you're going to get. There were no bathrooms or food for supporters at the socialist Zoran Mamdani block party. Of course there wasn't. Because he's a radical socialist. And I mean, at least he's putting his best foot forward and saying, you know what, in the end, we're not going to have any food anyway, so we may as well start right here. So no food for you, party yourselves until you're blue in the face, but you're not going to get any food from me. And I quote from Breitbart, fans of Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani were corralled into barricaded pens with no bathrooms or food at the block party for his inauguration on Thursday as New York City mayor. Quote, it's definitely not a block party. 30-year-old Astoria resident Danny Mahabir told the New York Post, explaining that he expected food and music on New Year's Day. Around 10,000 supporters of the Muslim socialist stood outside of City Hall during the event, which Mamdani's staff, let's see, where was I? Okay, so we'll just start. Around 10,000 supporters of the Muslim socialist stood outside City Hall during the event, which Mamdani's staff called the inauguration for a new era block party. Per the report, Mahabir, who wore 3 layers of clothes to protect against the frigid 20-degree weather, said he and others were, quote, just stuck behind the barricades watching it on TV. The crowd heard other far-left speakers, AOC and Bernie Sanders, before Mamdani took the oath of office. Quote, it's not exactly what I was expecting, 30-year-old Brooklyn resident Shane Turner told the outlet. I was expecting food and music. Of course you were, because that's what they always promise. That this democratic, socialist, communist regime, it's going to be great for everybody. We're going to have food and music, and everybody's going to be happy, and it's going to be one big giant party. Of course, Shane. Of course you were thinking about that. Quote, I could have watched this at home, said a 25-year-old Queens woman who declined to identify herself. The security lines also reportedly caused some confusion and delayed entry for some attendees. Event organizers told attendees to arrive by 11 for the 1 p.m. ceremony, which started a half hour later. Another woman, who did not want to be identified, told the Post that she waited in line for 90 minutes to access the viewing area. Quote, "The police officers have not been informed about anything. They don't know which entrance or where anything is," she said. "I'm really, really unhappy." Well, if you're unhappy now, you're most definitely going to be unhappy in a year or 2 years, because everything that he promised, which, by the way, I mean, is, let's see here. Here's one of them. Check this out.
Afford a life they love once again. We will overcome the isolation that too many feel and connect the people of this city to one another. The cost of childcare will no longer discourage young adults from starting a family.
Yeah.
Because we will deliver universal childcare for the many by taxing the wealthiest few.
Yay! We're going to pay for all of this by taxing the rich. Of course you are. And again, take this guy at his word. Mamdani's team warned attendees on their website that the event would not have portable bathrooms because of safety concerns, and also said there would be no food for sale within the block party. Well, that's because there won't be any food for sale anywhere else either. Mamdani officials told attendees that there were nearby markets and places to buy food, but they would need to leave the barricaded area to go through security again to get back in, according to the report. Even still, many who attended said they are passionate supporters of the new mayor. Quote, "I'm not disappointed," Turner said. "I came here to witness history. The past 4 years felt like hell under the previous mayor." Well, yeah, of course it did, because he, too, was a socialist. Just not as crazy, wacko left-wing as the socialist communist that's running the town now. But it's, my friends, you get what you vote for. And I have long said that voters get what they deserve. Now, what I mean by that is if you're going to be uneducated and you're going to vote for a guy because he gives flashy speeches and you think that he sounds good up at a microphone and he says all sorts of great and wonderful things that amount to nothing more than sophistry, then you absolutely get what you deserve. You see, we have a participatory representative republic. John Adams said that this government is wholly inadequate for anything other than an educated and devoutly religious people. You've got to be educated about what's going on in your country, because this country demands that you participate in it. And it's not just, one Tuesday every 2 and 4 years in November. That means that you got to hold these elected officials accountable. But the way that people like Mamdani get elected is, one, through sophistry, and two, because most people aren't watching what these folks are doing. Now, here's one that they should have been paying attention to from Fox News. Hours after taking office, New York City Mamdani targeted landlords, and he moved to intervene in a private bankruptcy case. All right, so remember, he promised all these things. Free buses, which, by the way, getting rid of all of the fees on buses is going to amount to around $750 million of lost revenue in the city. So $750 million come in bus fares that they're not going to have anymore, because with a stroke of a pen, Mamdani's just going to say all the buses are free. Now, and here's another problem. I mean, there's so many problems with this, but here's one of them. So when you get something for nothing, you have no respect for it. You ever been to a big city and actually looked at a housing project? Well, when I lived on the East Coast during my dubious 12-year adventure out there, I lived pretty close to a housing project. No, I didn't live in it, Anthony Bouchard. I lived next to it. Well, the reason why projects always look dilapidated is you got people that they don't have to work for it. Right? They're getting something for nothing. And when you don't have to work for something, you don't respect it, because nothing you did went into obtaining it. Now, Christine's stepdaughter, she just paid for her own first car, paid for the whole thing, paid cash for it, saved her money, bought the car. And that thing is that little girl's treasure, because she had to work for it. Now, housing projects, buses, First, you have to have revenue coming in to, maintain the buses. But secondarily, if you're just giving free rides to everybody, there's no reason why anybody would respect what they have. I'll give you another example. If you're in a church, you always charge people something for coming to the dinner. You don't have to charge a lot, but you don't just give food away. Because if you give somebody something for nothing, they don't value it. They don't see any value in it. They don't respect it. They're not going to treat it like it's something that they had to pay for. So that is exactly what's going to happen with definitely the buses and whatever else Mom Donnie says is going to be for free. And not to mention that he doesn't have any way to pay for it. But the bankruptcy case, and he's going to freeze the rent. So if you want to know why, and there was a story not that long ago that there are like a zillion open apartments in New York. And one of the reasons is landlords can't pay to repair the buildings because New York City has all these laws that the building has to be in and I don't remember the conditions, but it has to be in a certain condition before you can rent it. Well, when you rent something to somebody, there's normal wear and tear. And if they don't respect the property, then you got a lot of stuff to repair. Well, if you can't increase the rent, you can't repair it, which means that you can't rent it, which means there's going to be there's going to be a higher shortage of housing. But here's what Fox News says. Fox News correspondent C.B. Cotton reported live from New York City. Sworn in at midnight and again hours later publicly, New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani used the first day in office Thursday to hit the ground running with new executive orders targeting city landlords and housing development. And he said the city will take what he called precedent-setting action to intervene in a private landlord bankruptcy case he said was tied to 93 buildings. Quote, today is the start of a new era in New York City. It's Inauguration Day, and it's also the day that the rent is due. Ha 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 ha. Speaking at a Brooklyn apartment building, Mamdani framed the moves as an early test of whether city government will directly confront landlords over housing conditions and step into court cases that could determine whether tenants remain in their homes. Mamdani said New Yorkers who attended his inauguration were returning to apartments where, he said, quote, bad landlords do not make repairs. Rents rise and residents deal with issues like cockroaches and a lack of heat. The mayor said that the new administration will not wait to deliver action and will stand up on behalf of the tenants of the city. Now, there's a story on, I don't even know, I want to break this yet. I'll let Rebecca talk about it when she comes on here in about a half hour. But we're seeing a very similar phenomenon in Wyoming. Rebecca's been reporting and digging into this whole so-called affordable housing business that really it's a scam to line the pockets of private developers. And what ends up happening is that the people who actually, like the private people that actually want to build an apartment building and make some money on it, can't because they can't compete with government. There's this apartment complex, Flat Creek Apartments in Teton County, and I think grand total, it was like $26 million of your money that paid for this thing, and a large portion of that cash went to private corporations and private individuals. So you're paying to subsidize everybody else, which is exactly what Mamdani was promising. Let's see here. His second executive order, creates a lift task force or land inventory effort designed to leverage city-owned land and accelerate housing development. He said the task force will review city-owned properties and identify sites suitable for housing development no later than July 1. The third executive order creates the SPEED Task Force, which Mamdani said stands for Streamlining Procedures to Expedite Equitable Development. This sounds fantastic. He said the task force will work to remove permitting barriers that slow housing construction. Both task forces will be overseen by Deputy Mayor for Housing and Planning, Lila Joseph, he said. These are sweeping measures, but it is just the beginning of a comprehensive effort to champion these things. So on and on it goes. And I don't know how the mayor or presidents or governors or, any of them really have any power whatsoever to enact executive orders. That was never a thing, even though George Washington did. I think he issued 2 executive orders. But there's nothing in the Constitution that says you can issue an order that applies to everyone. The way that when I asked Representative Hageman about this, she said an executive order is no different than her sending a memorandum to her staff that says you will put a period at the end of every sentence. Now, the memorandum only applies to her staff. It doesn't apply to everybody else's staff. They can punctuate sentences however they want. But to her staff and hers alone, yes, they have to put the period there. And so when the president issues an executive order, it applies to the executive branch. It doesn't create a new law, and he can't create new statute. But things that are within his power, he can say, yeah, you have to capitalize the first letter of every sentence. So technically speaking, the president cannot create an executive order for the entire country and for things that are outside of the executive branch. But we have moved far past that. Most people consider executive orders to be law, but they're not. And if you took one to court, you could definitely prevail at it. And it's because our system was never set up for one person rule. But I promise you, New York, that is what's going to happen in your future. Show me your friends. I'll show you your future. Well, let's go ahead and take our first break. And when we come back, I want to talk about why what's happening in Iran is really, really, really important to you and why you should have already known about it. And then at the top of the hour, of course, we have the big announcement with me and Rebecca. She'll be here at 9 o'clock. Back in a minute. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program. It's Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday, Open Line Friday, 307-374-8989. If you want to be part of the program, phone line's going to be open all program long, though I may mute them at 9. That's right, my friends. My new business partner, Rebecca Bextel, will be here at 9 o'clock. Well, not actually in the studio, but she's going to join the program at 9 o'clock, and we're going to tell you what this big announcement is. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I've been waiting since July to really tell you about this, and so stick around. 9 o'clock, we'll have that announcement. Also, if you want to be part of the program, the phone number here in the studio is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. Now, since we are going to be announcing something that seems foreign to our pal Zoran Mamdani in New York. I mean, I don't know if you heard this part. Like I told you, his entire speech is jam-packed full of a whole bunch of great one-liners that we're going to be able to use for a really long time. But, this whole idea of starting your own business and, relying on yourself and, building up your own life, well, really, we should abandon that, according to Mom Donnie. Listen to this.
We will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism.
Whoa!
If our campaign demonstrated that the people of New York yearn for solidarity, then let this government foster it.
Yes, we need to abandon the frigidity of rugged individualism, the very thing that built this country. Because that's what socialists and communists do. They take something that's already been built and then they trash it. And they upend the economic system that allowed the conditions to exist for that system to develop itself. And then they say everybody's going to be equal. Well, that's true. They do say that. Everybody is going to be equally poor, except the folks at the top, which, there's no reason to assume that they are going to have to do the same thing as you because, the problem with socialism is socialism. I played this for you yesterday, but this is Rush hits it exactly right. This is one of my favorite sound bites from him, that there's no problem with capitalism. But you have people like Mom Donnie who have been rich his entire life, who have never had to build anything, who have never had to sign a paycheck, who don't know what it's like to make sure that your employees eat before you do. Instead, he was raised with a silver spoon in his mouth, and so he didn't have to ever do that. And so why wouldn't he think that you could take this great economic system, the free market capitalism that has been the impetus behind every single thing that we have, that has created the most wealthy country on the face of the earth. By the way, every single American, every single one of them is far more wealthy than about 98% of the world. I'm not kidding you, my friends. Even the poorest among us. Think about the poor people, the people that you think are poor. Now, they probably have a pair of tennis shoes on, and most of them probably have a phone. That's way better than most people on Earth. Most poor people here, a lot of them have a car. Now, it may not be a great car, but they still got one. It still goes around town. Yeah, most people in the world, they don't have a car. They don't have a phone. They don't have shoes on their feet. And they certainly don't have a nice house to live in. Now, it's true, we do have a lot of people in this country that live on the streets, but I would argue that the mechanisms exist in this country to get them off the streets. A lot of that's a personal choice. But socialists believe that this whole system of capitalism, it's really unfair. It's really terrible. Even though it's created the most prosperous, the most generous, the most powerful country this world has ever seen. But see, the problem with socialism is socialism. Here's how Rush put it.
The problem with socialism is socialism. The problem with capitalism is capitalists. Now, before you think this is a criticism of capitalism, it's not. The problem with socialism is itself. There's nothing wrong with capitalism, except there are some people who game the system. But in socialism, why has socialism never worked? Because the people who run it are not socialists. They are full-fledged capitalists. Go to the Soviet Union, go to China, go to Cuba. The sons and daughters of party members do what? They live in the nicest houses. They have the nicest cars. They go to the nicest schools. The people in power in socialist societies have the power to game the system for themselves. In capitalism, you do it through your work. You do it through your education. You do it by accessing opportunity in the private sector. Socialism has the same kind of people who don't want to be equal with everybody else. Where, socialism exists on this premise that we're all the same and that we're all equal. And we're going to take from those who have and redistribute to those who don't so that everybody's going to have the same. But it never works out. And why not? Because there's always a ruling class that has everything they want, forcing mediocrity, averageness on everybody else. And those people left are still trying to game the system.
Okay, so the problem with capitalism is capitalists. The problem with socialism is socialism, and that the people at the top are not socialists because they're not going to be the ones that are living in collectivist squalor. Now, I have a good friend, a friend of the program. His name's Charlie Cole, and he says that and he uses the exact same words as Zoran Mamdani, that we have to ban, that the idea of socialism really boils down to this whole collectivism. And you heard Ken, I don't know if it was on Tuesday or Wednesday, but he boiled it all down to these same issues being discussed in the Bible. You know, God said, go out and subdue the earth, be fruitful and multiply. But what happened is people tried to collect in larger cities, and one called Babel. And God looked at that and he said, yeah, I don't think this is a good idea. And poof, spread everybody out. Well, the point there is that when you congregate, when you try to focus on collectivism, you end up destroying everything that God set up, individual rights. I mean, like I keep saying, collectivism, socialism, whatever, it's democracy. It's two wolves and a sheep deciding on what they're going to have for lunch. But there is another problem with Zoran Mamdani. I mean, there's a lot of them, but the other major one is that he is also an Islamist. Okay, so not only and the two ideologies are very, very, very similar. So with socialism and communism, everybody's going to be equally poor, right? Everybody is going to be the same, that we're all going to contribute to the whole, and that each according to his need, from each according to his ability. That's how Karl Marx put it. So we're going to, put everything in this collective pot, and then we're going to divvy it up to everybody. So nobody has to want, nobody has going to have any needs. Well, Islamism promises the very same thing. The only difference being is that Islamism is cloaked in the religion of Islam. But the two are very much the same. Now, you notice, and if you listen to Zoran Mamdani's speech over and over, he says the word freedom all the time. Everybody is going to be free from want, freedom from need. I need to get that LBJ speech, the freedom from want speech. But he said it over and over and over, and the ideology that he possesses is incompatible with the idea of freedom, because that's why he said you have to abandon rugged individualism in favor of collectivism, because the two are diametrically opposed. So if you've read the Quran, and I have, I wouldn't suggest it, but the whole idea is you're going to take over an entire country, perhaps set up a caliphate, and everybody is going to be free. I mean, that phrase is used all the time. But what they really mean is under Sharia law, you are going to be free. Now, think about what Iran was like before the overthrow of the Shah of Iran. It was a pretty open society. I mean, most women went to college. I mean, there were a lot of trade ties between Iran and the West. And then Khomeini took over. All of that was out the window, and he set up this theocratic regime. And he claimed at the time that you're going to be free. Allah will set you free. You just have to abide by his laws, which, by the way, means that women have to be completely covered and they can't go to school and can't work and better not speak out of turn. And, if you're gay, we're going to throw you off a building. It's the two are incompatible, but the results are the same. That you're forcing an entire country, or in Mamdani's case, an entire city, to operate according to one agenda and one only. And that, in the case of Iran, or in other, there's lots of other Muslim countries, but that's going to be according to the Quran. In New York, so Mamdani is an Islamist, and he's also a communist, which, again, those two are very, very similar. That's why during all the, you remember all the riots? Or not riots, but the protests, and you saw all the people marching around with Free Palestine signs, and the Democratic Socialists were marching around with all their red flags, and the media referred to it as the Red-Green Alliance. Okay, red for communism, socialists, one for the Islamists. You see, the two groups will have allied together to get to the same goal. Now, the outcome of that goal is going to be very, very different. But the two ideologies are kind of in sync in going towards that goal. but one of them is going to be a theocratic regime. The other one is going to be a communistic regime, and that's where the two diverge. Because under communism, you can't really have a state religion because you can't have anybody worshiping anything except for the state. And the other part of it too is that communism and socialism has never worked on the face of the planet, and the facts, the economic facts, the philosophical facts, none of those things line up with communism. And so you have to suppress free speech and free thought and worship all in favor of the state. And that's the only way that it can work. But in Iran right now, there are mass riots going on. And here is why you should pay attention to this, because all of it, there's a lot of reasons that are going into it. But what sparked the most recent protests was the crash of their currency. And their currency, Iran hit like 70% inflation in the last year. And that sparked mass protests. And the rial, here it is. The rial was trading at 430,000 to $1. So already it's worth fractions of a penny when it comes to the U.S. dollar. So it went from $430,000 to the dollar when the Iranian central bank chief Mohammad Farzan took office in 2022, noting that Farzan resigned on Monday, but this did not calm the protests. Many businessmen closed their shops in protest of the currency collapse and high inflation rates. General inflation rose 1.8% to 42.4% in December. But food inflation, and if you want to create a riot, if you want to get people really fired up, the number one way to do that is make them hungry. When people are hungry, they'll do a whole bunch of things that they wouldn't normally do. So the currency collapsed and food inflation hit 72% this month. Now imagine that, right? If you go to the store and, it costs you a couple $100 when you go buy groceries, and then the next time you go, that price has gone up 72%. Yeah, it's probably going to produce a riot. Adding that the government is reportedly going to inflict a huge tax hike for March, which is the start of the new year for Iranians. All right, so not only is the currency collapsing, there's no money coming into the government. And so in order to fund the mullah's operations, well, then they're going to increase taxes. Now, I played a video for you yesterday, maybe it was the day before, of what the crowds were chanting. Let's see here. Let me find it. Where is it? Hold on just a second. Paper straws. Oh, that was yesterday. Okay. Yep. Okay. So I don't have that video from yesterday. But what the crowd was chanting was that stop giving money to Palestine and other terrorist organizations. You see, Iran has been funneling huge amounts of money to fund their terrorist operations in Palestine, Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria, and the Palestinians in the West Bank too. But they've been funneling huge amounts of money. So the video I was going to play for you, they said that Iran has sacrificed for Palestine and for other terrorist organizations. That's what they were chanting. Iran has sacrificed, and it's all currency related. Now, sure, the repression of Iranian citizens absolutely plays into this whole thing. It absolutely does. But what sparked these protests was the collapse of the currency. Iranian officials said a volunteer member of the Revolutionary Guard was killed during the recent protests, and it was reportedly the first death among security forces as the unrest continued. And just yesterday, Trump said that he put out a post on Truth Social that said, if the Iranians start killing protesters, and I think the words the president used are, we're locked and loaded and ready to go. During an interview early Thursday, Iran's President Mahmoud Pezeshkian said, quote, if we do not solve the problem of people's livelihood, we will end up in hell. Yeah, the people that run the government will, because that country will be flipped again, as it rightfully should. Quote, as a result, we must try in every way possible, whether as individuals or as a social group, as a capitalist or as a government, to untie the knots of the people, he added. Meanwhile, he recently said his country is in a full-scale war with the United States, Europe, and Israel, per Breitbart News. His words echo proclamations by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commander Hossein Soleimani, who had previously cautioned the West against that death awaits it at the hands of the victorious Iranian regime. Yeah, right. Well, the point being here is that the protests were sparked almost entirely by the collapse of the currency, which always happens, by the way. When a country's currency collapses and inflation spikes, it spells the end for whatever country you're talking about. And it's happened over and over again. Probably the best example would be the Roman Empire. Many historians will tell you that one of the big reasons that Rome fell is they started inflating their currency. Their empire became so huge, and you got to pay your soldiers, and if you can't pay them, well, then they're not going to fight for you. And so what the emperors started doing was reducing the amount of silver in their coins. And so, I mean, people aren't stupid. When they realize that coins aren't silver anymore, they hoard the ones that are, and they don't use the currency that's being minted. And so, and inflation, what we would probably call inflation now, was rampant in Rome. About 30% of Roman citizens were on the Roman version of welfare, getting free bread. And so very much the same sort of things that we see happen today. The Weimar Republic in Germany was another one. After World War I, they started printing money hand over fist, and pretty much their money became worthless. Or there was Zimbabwe in 2008, when they had to print $100 trillion bills. But it's happened over and over and over again. When the currency collapses, so too does the government. And in the case of Iran, I mean, it's going to be horrible, but that's probably the best thing that could happen. Now, why is this important? Why do I tell you that you should really, really, really be paying attention to this? Because the old really dumb idea that, well, this can't happen here. This is America. This can't happen here. This is Wyoming. This can't happen here. Well, my friends, our debt is $36 trillion, over $36 trillion. By the way, that's more money than exists on planet Earth. Like, if you rounded up all of the cash in the world, it would not equal $36 trillion. And so eventually, that bill is going to come due. There is going to be a country like China that owns a significant amount of our debt, is going to call in the note, and they're going to say, hey, pay up. And then the poop is really going to hit the oscillating unit. And that's one of the reasons why you're seeing gold at $4,300 an ounce and silver. Last time I checked, it was close to 80. But that's one of the main reasons why those two commodities are going up. It's not the price of gold and it's not the price of silver. It's the value of the dollar. When the value of the dollar goes down, people flock to more secure commodity, more secure assets like gold and silver. It wasn't that long ago that gold was $2,000 an ounce. Now it's $4,300. It kind of makes you wish you had that $300 gold piece that you did in 1985, right? But the point is that we live in an increasingly interconnected economic world. And what happens in one corner of the world will affect other places. Now, I'm not saying that if the currency and country collapse in Iran, it's going to affect our economy. In fact, I think if the country collapsed, or at least the regime collapsed, that would absolutely be a good thing for Iran. But it's not going to be a good thing for Iranian citizens. They already can't pay to eat. And when their money is literally worth nothing, they're not going to be eating anymore. So, I mean, that one is a situation that you should really be paying attention to because it does have ramifications to where you live. Now, I mean, right now, things are pretty good in our country, man. Christine and I were in Buffalo the other day, and I think gas was like $2.30 a gallon. It's $2.50 some here, which doesn't make any sense to me because the gas all comes from the same place. It's a station at Mead Creek. But anyway, yeah. So, you know what? We're pretty close to the top of the hour. So let's go ahead and take our second break. And when we come back, we'll have about a minute or two. And then my pal Rebecca will be here and we're going to announce, oh man, I'm so excited about this. I mean, it's going to be great, but we'll do that in just a second. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday, open line Friday. We got a big announcement coming up in just a couple of minutes. Thank you for joining me, my friends. Thank you for watching the program. Thank you for everything you do. By the way, yesterday, I looked at and I don't often talk about this because I think that, it gets a little nerdy. But I don't often tell you about the analytics of the show. But in this case, I absolutely should. So this show, the one you're watching right now, has over 700,000 views since January 1st of last year. Almost 750,000 views of this program in 1 year. Thank you very, very much for watching. You have no idea what that means to me. And I'll tell you, you should be very proud of that, because what it tells you is that you're paying attention to what's actually happening. That you've made a conscious choice not to pay attention to the mainstream Wyoming press, who, by the way, they don't really participate in journalism. It's opinion wrapped up as news. And I've got, if you look at the opinion page of the Cowpie right now, there's 4 pretty negative op-ed pieces about conservatives. If there's an article that's written about the Freedom Caucus or conservatives in the House or conservatives in general, it almost always has a negative slant to it. It's very rarely fair, and it's really hard for you to get actual news. Now, the truth is that the news business has never been unbiased. You're kidding yourself if you think so. Newspapers have always been unbiased. All right, so Rebecca is here on the program. So let's see. Let's welcome Rebecca. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. What are you up to?
Well, I hear there's about to be another governor announcement here.
Oh, yeah? Who do you think that's going to be?
I'm not sure yet. I just heard through the grapevine.
Oh, I see.
I hear just a little bit.
You realize you're in the news business, right?
Yes.
Oh, wait, we haven't announced that yet. So maybe we should talk about it. I got to tell you, I'm super excited to talk about this. This has been something that Rebecca and I have been working on for months, probably since July. I think it was the first time we actually talked about it, but we put a lot of work into it. So I'll just go ahead and let you make the announcement. What are we doing? What are we talking about?
Well, you and I have started Open Range Record, and what we are going to do is try to spotlight the legislators, things going on in the session, things that matter to people all over Wyoming. So we'll have guest writers. If people want to go to Cheyenne and keep up with the session, contact us and we'll arrange that for them. And we're going to give real news, and that's going to be different than opinions that are news. And so I'm
So
excited.
what is, yeah, I mean, that's pretty close. But what the Open Range Record is a brand new news platform. The site is live right now if you go to openrangerecord.com. And it's first, I'm pretty impressed with the guy that designed the website. I think it's
Me too.
fantastic. And but it's a clean look. And let me go ahead and put the, let's see here, Open Range. Whoops. If I spelled our website right, that would be great. But it's a brand new news platform. And like Rebecca said, our goal is to have news on the news page and opinion on the opinion page, which is something that you don't get now. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, what you get now from just about every news outlet is opinion that is wrapped up as news. I don't know. I can't think of the last time I read a news article where it was, here's the facts, here's what this person said, here's what this person said, make up your own opinion or make up your own mind. We don't get that. And I mean, that's the reason why we wanted to do this, isn't it?
Yes, and there's so many people, just like when I was busting the 110,000 scam, that took a lot of effort, combing through documents, all these public record requests. Well, you're really holding a smoking gun, but there's so many special interests against you getting the story out there. They don't want to, the news has, they don't want to just tell the truth, or else, might be mass panic. So so all these people around Wyoming that are, Don Marcourt, Tina Johnson, Kathy Russell, Laura Pavey. I hope some of those people will do guest shots on our program. We've kind of talked to them about it already. And we're going to have a live broadcast every evening during the session, just a quick recap where people can see what actually happened that day. Would you like to talk about any of our other features, David?
Oh yeah. So I tell you what, let me show the audience what exactly we're talking about, and we'll kind of run through. I messed up and put this program. Maybe I can show you this. Let's see here. I messed up and put the live program on the website. And I didn't realize that I couldn't show the website because if I did, it would create this weird audio loop. So sorry about that. All right, so let me see here if I can get this going. Maybe I can. Yeah, there it is. All right, so I guess I should have tested this before we went online. But go to openrangerecord.com and you can check it out for yourself. Some of the features of the program or of the site. You'll notice that it's broken up into a couple of different news categories. There's federal news, which you're always going to have that. Right now, one story is Chuck Gray running for the U.S. House of Representatives. So you'll find that on the main Wyoming page. But so there's federal news, Wyoming news, just kind of general. And one thing that I'm really excited about is investigative reporting, because there's a lot of people statewide that have really been digging into some things in their own community that they think are wrong. And one of the big stories that's right at the top of the page right now is one that you have been digging into, Rebecca. And I think the article is titled "The Huge 110,000th Scam." So why don't you just give our audience the Cliff Notes version of what that piece is?
Well, I stumbled on a scam going on here in Teton County where local housing authorities try to pretend. They don't actually pretend. They'll fill out property tax exemption applications, basically alluding to the fact that they own a building, but they actually don't. Who owns it are these large private equity firms on the East Coast. The developers are paying themselves 7 figures to facilitate the deals. No money's in it on the developer. This is all taxpayer funded. And then the kick in the teeth is when the tenants get into the building, they're not required to be low income after the first year. They don't have to have a tax return to get into the building, like a paycheck stub will work. And so this is all over the place. I've been stonewalled. So since August, I've been trying to get public record requests out of the Wyoming Community Development Authority. They have yet to give me a single document. Can you believe that? I lawyered up 2 months ago, still nothing. The Casper Housing Authority gave me one management agreement. I've been dealing with their lawyers for months. They do not want you to know this. So I'm actually hosting a town hall. You and I will be in Casper. We'll be in Bar None Thursday night at 5:30 p.m. Dinner on me at the hangar. And I'm going to break down what's going on in Natrona County. But I wrote this piece because it affects really everybody in Wyoming. And you spend all this time and then you send it to the cow pie, and well, they want affordable housing. They don't care.
Oh, yeah.
Or getting ripped off, or it's a scam, or the people don't pay property tax. They don't care about any of that as long as we keep getting affordable housing. And so that was just one of the reasons that I was motivated to do this project with you.
Well, I think one of the big points there, and I think you make it pretty clear in the piece, that these buildings are not really owned by Wyoming citizens. The one in Jackson, it's pretty much owned by this Montana company, Blue Line Development, it's called. And we're not talking small dollar numbers here. We're talking like, tens of millions. Yeah, 20 million, 30 million. The one in Casper, that one's owned by an East Coast equity firm. I mean, and they don't have to pay property taxes. Think about that. You have to pay property taxes because if you don't, they'll take your house. But these out-of-state firms that own these giant buildings, that were paid for with your money, and which still blows my mind. But anyway, it's a great piece. It's on the top of the Open Range record. And I figured it out. Let me go ahead and show our audience what the website looks like.
I like the one you did on the Wyoming Business Council. Somebody needs to bust.
Yeah, that one was fun. All right, so here's what the top of the page looks like. It's really simple and clear, and it's easily navigable. This is what I was talking about, how we've got different news categories. In this one, Wyoming Watch, and when the session kicks off, there'll be lots of stories that are just related to the House of Representatives. And then there will be stories that are kind of specific to what's happening in the Senate. And then this one right here is one that I'm pretty proud of. And there's only 2 stories here. But this is going to be local stories that, our readers bring to us. And this one here is a piece that I wrote a while ago. It's talking about all the raises that were authorized by Gordon. I mean, he signed the bill, and everybody was supposed to get education was supposed to get a big raise, and none of the school districts gave it to them. So that's what that piece is about. Now, if you go to Voices and Views, this is all of the opinion. And you'll notice that all of our articles are labeled columns or Wyoming Watch or, House Insider, but they're all labeled. So we're very clear on what we think opinion is and what opinion is not, and what we think news is and what it is not. So we're trying to be really, really clear. And so there's a clear distinction between those. And that's what you don't get from the Wyoming media. Now, this other category here, Livewire, and this is the part that I can't show you because the video you're watching right now is being broadcast on these 2 channels. But the Roundup, that's going to be our nightly news broadcast from Cheyenne. We're going to do Rebecca, why don't you tell us what the Roundup is going to be? You kind of mentioned it earlier, but go into a little bit more detail here.
Well, every night after the session, we want it to be something that you can tune into while you're driving home from work or you're cooking dinner, and you just really actually hear what happened that day. Maybe we'll talk about something in a committee meeting or something that's very relevant, and that's the actual facts. So we might have legislators talk for a few minutes. We might have just concerned citizens tell us what's going on. But every night during the session, in theory, unless something crazy happens, you can tune in and get a quick update.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to be able to pull in legislators from from your hometown. And the cool thing is, we're really close to the Capitol, so it should be pretty easy for us to grab a couple people and to bring them in. So that's the Roundup. And then this program is on the Cowboy State Politics Live page. That's the other one I can't show you because this is being broadcast on both of those. And then the other one is my podcast. You can get everything here that you want, and it's just another way for you to get it. And so anyway, that's pretty much the whole shooting match. But there is another really cool part of this that I'm so excited about this. So in 2 weeks, should be 2 weeks, we have a mobile app that will be available. It's in development right now. It's beta testing should happen, I think, in 2 weeks, which will make it available to everybody. I got the first one I went with was the Android version because I have an Android phone. Sorry for you Apple people. Sorry, Rebecca. And then today I'm going to start putting together the Apple version of it. And so we'll have both the Android and Apple version of our mobile app ready to go. I'm hoping by the session. Never know how long these things take, but definitely we'll have the Android ready to go. So all of this is super exciting, and I can't tell you how grateful I am to you, Rebecca, for helping to make this thing happen. And I think this is going to be great for the state.
There's a ton going on, all the elections, all the nuclear waste scams people have busted, all the wind energy projects. No one is really telling you the truth. They try to make people like Tara Nethercott look like a hero. And they, are so derogatory towards Chuck Gray. And we're tired of that. And so we're just going to shoot you with the facts, tell it like it is, and hopefully raise your awareness. And I hope we move further towards conservative values come November.
Now, that's one other thing that I wanted to talk with our audience about. I'm so sick of not hearing both sides. And the point in a news platform is that you get both sides. And so, even if there's stuff that we don't agree with, you're going to see it pop up on the website. Right now, there's an op-ed piece from a guy that, I don't really get along with him too much, but he sent me an op-ed and he's got an opinion too. So we went ahead and published it. That's not to say that we're going to publish everything, because, there's only so much space we have. But we're going to make a real effort to show you both sides of what's going on. And that is definitely something that you don't get right now.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. All I have to do is make it to mid-February without another speeding ticket, and
don't do that.
I've cleared the year where they were going to take my license. So I'm looking forward to spending lots of time in Cheyenne. And thanks, David, for being a little partner with me on this.
Oh yeah, man. Well, hopefully this turns into be a big thing, and I think it will, and I'm super excited. So thank you very much for everything that you've done, and it's going to be fun going forward.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Rebecca. All right. So back to the program, and that the open range record, I think I am so excited about it that I can't tell you how big of a deal this is. I showed you the website, and like I said, the mobile app, it looks exactly like the website. And so the two are going to work in tandem. I've got to tell you, I'm pretty impressed with myself, how I put it together. It's going to be amazing, but make sure that you stay tuned to the website. You're going to see a lot more stories popping up right now. Right now, the big headlines are the Business Council article that I wrote. And I tried really, really hard to keep my opinion out of it, even though I really disagree with that guy. And then the next story on the website is Chuck Gray gave his first interview after his announcement to Cowboy State Politics, and you can watch the interview there. I think let's see here. Yeah, if you go to that page, there's a link to the video right there. So super cool, and I'm glad that you can go along with us on this. This is going to be awesome. And so one other thing that I mentioned, if you go, that I don't think that I mentioned, if you go to the website and go under, let me make sure I'm telling you right here before I open my big mouth. If you go to Voices and Views, at the top of the website, there's a section called Range News. And actually, let me see if I can share my screen again so you can see this. Let's see here. Screen share. Hopefully it will let me do it. Yeah, cool. Okay. So let me just show you what I'm talking about here. So this is the main page of the website. And if you go to Voices and Views, and if you go down here to Range News, there's a contact form. And this is where, if you got a comment about the platform or about the show and you just want to send us a note, that's cool. Or if there's something going on in your community that you think that we should know about, that's the place to do it. So one more time, if you go to Voices and Views and go to Range News, you can send us a note right there. And it'll go straight to me and Rebecca. And whatever it is, we'll get it out to our staff. Oh, and that's the other thing that I can't believe Rebecca and I forgot to talk about this. So we do have a staff already. We're going to have journalists in Cheyenne on the ground writing stories. And so this has been a pretty big effort for all of us. And, it's pretty cool. So anyway, my friends, I'm really excited about it. And let us know what you think. Let's go ahead and take another break. And when we come back, we'll continue with the program. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday afternoon. If you're just now joining us, we just did the announcement for the open range record. And like I said, I am super, super, super excited about it. It's one of those things, my friends, that we have worked really hard on. And why is I'm having such a problem here? There we go. All right. But I've been working on it since July, me and Rebecca have, and we're really excited about it. So the website is live. Make sure that you check it all the time. Pretty soon, like I said, the mobile app will be ready to go. And that's going to be pretty exciting too. It's super sweet. So here is one of the reasons why we put this whole thing together. We decided that we were going to make this effort. And just for example, if you go to the opinion section, and again, this is opinion, but if you go to the opinion section of the Cow Pie, there are 4 different op-eds. They're all critical of conservatives. And this one here is entitled, "Our Delegation is Horrible and Trump is Even Worse." Now, you got to imagine that an outlet as big as the Cow Pie, and they are, like right now, the number one news outlet in the state. Can you just imagine how many opinion pieces are sent to them on probably a daily basis? And the ones they choose are almost all of them are critical of conservatives. But this one is entitled, "Our Delegation is Horrible and Trump is Even Worse." And I'm just going to read you like the first 3 paragraphs. "I'm extremely frustrated that Wyoming keeps electing people that do not follow the rule of law." All right, I'd like to see how that works out. Barrasso and Lummis are basically Trump's puppets at this point and do not have much of a backbone at all. Harriet Hageman beat Liz Cheney in a primary, and Cheney was one of the few people who had a backbone and was willing to admit the truth. Wyoming needs to know the truth about Trump. Hageman is one of the main members of Congress who support the cover-up of the Epstein files. Barrasso, Lummis, and Hageman all support the largest cut to health. Okay, so, I mean, this one is obviously written by a wacko liberal. And even if he is a Republican, he's definitely a redcoat. But it's, it's stuff like this that made us, and I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but that caused us to, put the work in and develop this platform as we have. And I have a feeling that this thing is going to go bonkers pretty quick. So, by the way, get contact emails. We didn't cover that in our announcement either. But if you want to get a hold of me, the address is david@cowboystatepolitics.com. And you can also send an email to editor@openrangerecord.com. Or if you want to talk to Rebecca, Rebecca's email address is rebecca@openrangerecord.com. So you can contact us that way or through the website. It all goes through the same place. So anyway, let's talk about something different here. One of the amazing clowns that was on, from the Biden administration is Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Supreme Court Justice. And I'm sure that she's a delightfully wonderful person, but she doesn't know that much about the law at all. And here is some perfect examples of it. From the Daily Caller, rounding up Ketanji Brown Jackson's best moments of the year. The first one is Jackson argues for rule by the judiciary. The Supreme Court sat for oral argument in the case of Trump v. Casa in May. Trump had challenged birthright citizenship for certain individuals born into the United States as an executive order. A move promptly struck down by 3 district courts via nationwide injunction. The justices considered the legality of nationwide or universal injunctions, which are often issued by a single federal judge, and blocked the federal government for enforcing a policy across the nation. Number 2, Amy Coney Barrett goes for the jugular. Quote, in a 6-3 ruling in Trump v. Casa, the Supreme Court held that universal injunctions likely exceed the equitable authority that Congress has granted to the federal courts. Quote, but Jackson dissented, obviously, doing so with, quote, deep disillusionment. Here's what she said. We will not dwell on Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth. This is Coney Barrett saying this. Which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this, that Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing the imperial judiciary. Jackson, quote, offers a vision of the judicial role that would make it even the most ardent defender of judicial supremacy blush. In her telling, the fundamental role of the courts is to order everyone, including the executive, to follow the law, full stop. Jackson's argument stumbles out of the gate. The clause came out again in June in Medina versus Planned Parenthood South Atlantic decision, with Jackson and her colleagues throwing thinly veiled barbs at each other's judicial sensibilities. In a 6-3 decision, the majority sided with Medina, ruling that states are not legally bound to fund abortion facilities like Planned Parenthood. Thank you, God, for that. Jackson, along with Justices Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan, dissented. Jackson accused the majority of, quote, stymieing the country's great civil rights laws. The majority opinion retorted that was an extravagant charge. Now, what she's saying is that you have a civil right to kill a baby. No, you don't. You don't have a right to kill anybody. You don't have a right to kill another innocent human being, for sure. Jackson's line of argument stumbles out of the gate and suffers from a number of problems, according to the opinion of the court. Instead of grappling meaningfully with the test our precedents provide, the dissent proposes to rewrite it. The opinion reads, our precedents do not authorize anything like the dissent's approach, and for good reason. Number 4, Jackson freaks out over an immigration ruling. By a 7-2 decision, the Supreme Court closed a Biden-era immigration loophole permitting President Donald Trump to revoke parole status for 500,000 migrants in May. Quote, here's what it said. It requires next to nothing from the government with respect to irreparable harm, and it undervalues the devastating consequences. Oh, this is Jackson writing this article, man. All right, so Jackson writes, it requires next to nothing from the government to respect an irreparable harm, and it undervalues the devastating consequences of allowing the government to precipitously upend the lives and livelihoods of nearly 500,000 non-citizens while their legal claims are pending. There's number 5, of course. Wait, you guys are you taking this seriously? Jackson confessed at an Indianapolis Bar Association luncheon held in July that she was surprised by the formality of her colleagues. Yeah, they're on the Supreme Court, so they should be a little bit formal. Here's what she said. I think I didn't realize how formal the court really is. I kind of thought maybe when the justices go into conference, they let their hair down a little bit. No. We speak in order, seniority order. We vote in seniority order. We shake each other's hands every time in a ritual that we do before going out on the bench, or if we're just having a conference day, before conference, every time. And so it's kind of interesting and neat, but it's quite a formal institution. And then the last one. Black people are disabled, according to Ketanji Brown Jackson. During October's oral argument for Louisiana v. Calais, a redistricting case, Jackson offered a strange defense of racially drawn district lines. Quote, I guess I'm thinking of the fact that remedial action absent discriminatory intent is really not a new idea in the civil rights laws, and my kind of paradigmatic example of this is something like the Americans with Disabilities Act. I'll leave you to decide the implications of that line of thinking. The point here is that Biden didn't put the most qualified person on the bench. Rather, he put a DEI hire on there. Now, she is a Supreme Court justice now, and there's very, very little that we can do about that. But it was Biden himself that said he was going to nominate a black woman, and there were no other qualifications that he mentioned. That's not how our country works, my friends. We are, by definition, a meritocracy, and we ought to be. There's no reason to assume that we're not. Our country was set up that way, that if you work hard and that you put your nose to the grindstone, that you can be successful. And the best ideas should rise to the top, and the worst ones, well, they should go to the bottom, my friends. And that's the way our country ought to work. We ought not pick people based on the color of their skin or the way that they look. It's all on their ability. You know, you have the right you have an equal opportunity to succeed in this country, but you do not, however, have a right to equal outcomes. Well, let's do one more break, and we'll finish up when we come back. It's Open Line Friday. Hold on. Oh, there I go, pushing the wrong button. I get so excited about our announcement that I just couldn't figure out where they are. Here's the right one. In a minute. Yeah, I know. The weather seems to be toying with us. 60 one day, 42 the next, and pretty soon, my friends, those 6s and 4s are going to turn into 3s and 2s. Though we all want to avoid it, that white stuff is coming, my friends, and you will be shoveling the walk in it. It's cold, it's unpleasant, and nobody likes to do it. But you could make it just a little bit more comfortable and prevent your feet from turning into a giant block of ice. In fact, you could keep them nice and warm and toasty, and your toes will never even know that they're outside. The rest of you may be frozen solid, but at least your feet won't be. To make all this happen, You just need a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country and you just can't take it anymore? Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. If you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Obviously, this program is only going to continue to get stronger. There's the podcast, there's this program, Cowboy State Politics Live, there's the newsletter, the Outrider, and now the Open Range Record. My friends, I am completely excited today to tell you that we were able to announce the Open Range Record. It's I have wanted to so many times to just tell you what we've been up to, but we finally got it up and going. And so make sure that you check out the Open Range Record every day. My hope is to have a couple news stories for you, at least one a day. We'll see how that goes. It all depends on what we got coming in. But things are going to really ramp up when we get closer to the legislative session. But anyway, so thank you for watching. I got one more story for you today. And yeah, we're going to cut the program a little bit short, just because I've got, as you can imagine, I have a number of things I've got to do today. But this story is from the Daily Caller. And it's entitled Smorgasbord of Stupid. Greg Jarrett explains how Democrats suing Trump all over the place backfired big time. Now, I just gave you a story before the break of the numerous lawsuits against Donald Trump at the Supreme Court and how he's pretty much won every single one of them. And if you hadn't noticed, that is it's the Democrat, I guess I should say, it's the Democrat plan to use the courts where they can't do things politically. They don't have the votes to change what they want to do in Congress, and they don't have the presidency, and so really they can't stop anything. So the only thing that they have left is the courts, and they have really attempted to turn the courts into another political branch. And I don't think, I guess trying is kind of is probably sort of a soft word there, because they have been kind of successful. It's just the decisions at the Supreme Court haven't gone in their favor, but they've absolutely turned the courts into another political branch. Well, this is what the Daily Caller says, quote, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett said Wednesday that Democrats handed President Donald Trump one of the most consequential advantages this year after dragging him into court over nearly every major action he took. The Trump administration has faced hundreds of lawsuits from Democrats and allied groups, a legal barrage that ultimately backfired. Appearing on Evening Edit, Jarrett said that Democrats' court losses didn't merely remove legal roadblocks to Trump's policies, but instead produced rulings that expanded presidential authority. Here is what Greg Jarrett said on that program. If I can get back there, let's see your show prep. Where did it go? There it is. Check this out.
centers. That didn't go anywhere. And government buildings. What do you think, Greg? What was your most cringe moment for Democrats this year?
Well, Liz, it's a smorgasbord of stupid. But the biggest was that Democrats sued Trump over everything, and it boomeranged against them big time. Yeah, they had some early wins, but when they ultimately lost in the higher courts, the rulings had the unintended effect of vastly expanding Trump's presidential powers. Every time he did anything, Democrats and their allies sued more than 530 times in 11 months, which is pretty shocking. And the major cases, of course, went to the U.S. Supreme Court, where Trump won an astounding 90% of the time. His biggest victory was ending the nationwide injunctions that had tried to block his policies. That's all gone now. They've neutered the district court judges. But Trump also netted big wins on amnesty, transgender issues, third country removals, immigration enforcement, ending DEI funding. And he's poised to win the right to fire people, at executive agencies. So in all, he's actually racked up 21 Supreme Court wins, according to my count, and poised to win more. All of it thanks to Democrats who mistakenly challenged his authority, and they lost.
Wow, great numbers from
a smorgasbord of stupid. And, that's... I don't want you to mistake what the Democrats are doing as them just being completely inept, because they're not. I foresee in the next election you're going to, and even in Wyoming, I think you're going to see a resurgence of the Democrat Party. Now, do I think they're going to be able to take that many races? No. But I do think they're going to be a lot more active, and you probably will see more Democrat candidates. They're probably not going to be all that successful, but at the very least, you'll see them. Well, my friends, that pretty much burns up another busy broadcast hour and a half. It's been a busy program this morning. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for everything that you do. Like I mentioned earlier on in the program, this show has been watched over 700,000 times in the last year. And it's only going to get better. And all of that is thanks to you. And so I can't thank you enough. This is going to be a great year for Cowboy State Politics. It's going to be a great year for the Open Range Record. Go check out the website. Once again, it is openrangerecord.com. And my friends, for now, from the base of the Bighorns, from the Cowboy State Politics studio, from Open Range Record headquarters, I'm David Iverson. And this is Cowboy State Politics. Have a good weekend, my friends.